All right, welcome everybody. We're excited to have you here for our roundtable, business industry specific. I believe this is our 6th roundtable. And this one is attractions, entertainment, recreation, and being the event director for the Toledo Regional Chamber of Commerce, I'm as excited to be a participant as a as a leader or a moderator in this one. So you can bet I'll be taking a lot of notes. So, but really with that, I do want to turn it over to Wendy Grams to go ahead and get us started.
Welcome, everyone. We've got about 40 people on the call right now, and I'm sure more will be joining us. And again, thank you for joining us. We have tried to provide up-to-date information to all of our members as we moved through the beginning of the pandemic, and now as things are opening up, and we will continue to do so as we really start to plot the future and what what brighter days are going to look like. We have a number of guests with us that I want to introduce and a number of people that are going to speak. So we'll get started. Normally I go through and show our Business Reboot website. I'm not going to do that today since we do have a number of guests on the call, but I would urge you to go to toledochamber.com/reboot. There's a lot of information about the openings. There's a direct link, a lot of information from the health department. There are resources for business owners in all industries, and also a list of all of our Reboot partners that are part of this program with us. So please take a minute to take a look at that. There's a lot of great information on the site that will be useful to you. I want to introduce Mayor of the City of Toledo, Wade Cabbage. I know I saw his name pop up earlier. Mayor, would you like to say welcome?
Okay, sorry about that. We had a little bit
No
of
problem.
a little technical glitch, but yes, thank you for the invitation to be here. And I want to thank everyone who's participating in this call, the roughly 40 or so businesses who have joined today. I do think this is probably the 5th or 6th reopening the economy session that the Chamber has led. I can recall participating in one regarding restaurants and the transportation industry and real estate properties and a number of others, and look forward to today's just as much. I would say to those businesses who are on this call that hate to put in a shameless plug, but if you're not a member of the Chamber, you should be. I mean, the access to resources and help and information and advocacy that you get from the Chamber is invaluable, especially at a time like this where we're trying to figure out how to thread that needle between public health on one side and the need and right of folks like yourselves to operate a business, make a living, and provide entertainment to families. So I think you'll see from this call what a valuable resource the Chamber is, and I hope you take advantage of it. I know that there are other folks on this call representing the city that can talk about some of the specific logistical issues that I know you have questions about. Yes, we have made pools of resources available to provide aid to small businesses who are seeking relief as a result of COVID-19. Just end of last week, we partnered with LISC on another small business COVID-related relief program. And beyond that, there's a whole other array of information that we can provide in terms of how our local health department is or is not going to enforce these, this is an editorial comment, increasingly confusing regulations that the governor and the state have imposed. You know, we are in a different place than we were back in March, and now happily we are reopening again. But it's just difficult to understand why you can have 300 people at a wedding reception, but we're still not allowed to gather in groups larger than 10. at least until July 1st, although my hope is that perhaps after July 1st, that'll be loosened too. So it's, again, very confusing time. I think all of us are trying to make the best of it. And I know that this session will provide a lot of resources and answers to questions you may have. So again, thank you, and look forward to the conversation.
Great, thank you. And I know Sandy Spang from the City of Toledo is also on the call. Sandy, do you have a quick comment, or you want to wait till questions?
There we go. Well, Wendy, again, I would echo what the mayor said. The leadership of the chamber and the Small Business Development Center through this time has been invaluable. It's been a real pleasure to partner with you as we attempt to get information out. I know that the folks we're talking to today have been waiting a long time for the opportunity to reopen. And so I know it's been a really difficult time. I would only mention, because it is such new news and it was announced without much fanfare, that if anyone was locked out of the EIDL, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, and the loan advance that accompanies it, there was an unexpected reopening of it night before last. I got an email late in the evening. It's open, it is still funded, and if you did not have the opportunity to apply for that, I would encourage you to do so. You apply through the SBA website. So the EIDL is open again, and then I'll just wait for any questions that come up. Thank you.
Okay, great. And do we have anyone from the county or any of the commissioners on the call? Don't see them, so we'll go ahead and move on. I also just wanted to say hello to a couple of people that are on the call. We have Krista Lutman from Governor DeWine's office. She is on the call, I believe. And Ann Spence from the Ohio Attorney General's office is also on the call, as well as Erica Krause, who is the regional representative for Senator Sherrod Brown. So we do have some people that have the ear of our decision makers and legislators. So this is a great opportunity for them to hear what everyone is thinking and feeling. So thank you. Now I want to get to Andrew Mountry from Great Lakes Marketing. They did several weeks ago, maybe a month ago or so now, a survey of constituents, people in the Toledo area, and what their comfort level was with reopening. And now they've just done another one in June, and I'm going to let Andrew walk through those findings.
All right, thank you, Wendy. So just to give you all a little background on what we're doing here, as Wendy said, we did a survey back in April, and this is a follow-up. And as more information comes out and more things change, there will be more follow-ups in the future. So I just want to say good afternoon to everyone, and thank you to the Chamber for the opportunity to present this data today. Just a quick intro as to who we are at Great Lakes. We are a marketing research firm located in Toledo, and we have been gathering the opinions of Toledoans and those across the nation since 1964. So as I said, this is the second survey wave with the objective of helping us understand how consumers are responding to the opening of Ohio. This presentation includes responses from 400 adults who live in the greater Toledo area. And as you can see, the data is very current. However, the survey data were collected before the weekend's news stories that we saw a lot of increased COVID cases in several states who had loosened their regulations. So in our next wave, I'm sure that we'll see different data than this wave, but not even just a little over a week old. So from this slide here, you can see that only 7% of Toledoans currently think that the pandemic is yesterday's news. It's still very relevant in the eyes of many, and most are looking for a vaccination or news of no new cases before they call this pandemic over. This means that even though Toledoans are venturing out, they do not feel that they're fully in the clear. So again, businesses need to continue to give their patrons confidence that their safety is still paramount. Also, I want to mention all these slides will be uploaded. We have the full report available. So if you want to dive deeper into the data, we're happy to get that to you. Moving along, just over a third of Toledoans are going to be waiting until closer to events to purchase tickets. And the main reasoning behind this is to ensure that the event will occur, most likely because they want to be sure they get their money back, just in case something is canceled. Over a quarter of Toledoans will not be buying tickets for major events for the foreseeable future. Event planners might be able to stimulate ticket purchases if the refund policy is made very clear and gives consumers confidence that they will get their money back if the event is canceled. And at the very bottom there, you can see being unsure is very common, and you'll see on the next slide as well. A lot of people are just not sure of what they're comfortable with or what they should be comfortable with. So looking here, 24% of Toledoans will be comfortable buying tickets for events scheduled later this summer, between July and August. In total, about 43% should be back to buying tickets by October, which is great news, but still less than half the usual percentages. And at the very bottom there, again, you can see that nearly half of Toledoans are unsure of when they will be comfortable buying tickets for major events. This lack of confidence is related to the uncertainty consumers feel about when there will be a vaccination or reports of no new cases. So like we all know, new information is coming out every day, and that 43% could be a good number though. Those 43% might decide, hey, I'm going to be good as soon as I get that information. I'll be good going to an event in July or August, but it could go either way. So we just had a few slides for you there to give you data that's relevant to you and your business, but rebound we will. The timing appears to be a function of consumer confidence. It's simple as that. If you have any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat and I will try to answer them to the best of my ability. If you think of one later or you want the full document, you can feel free to email Lori Dixon, president of GLM. Her email is there on the screen along with her phone number if you want to get in contact. We wish you all great success with your reopening. We hope that it goes well. And of course, if you need anything from us, we're always happy to help.
Great, thank you so much, Andrea. It's a great thing that Great Lakes Marketing Research is doing on behalf of the community and providing that information to everyone. It will be uploaded on toledochamber.com/reboot, so you can dig into the numbers. I won't ask you to answer this now, Andrew, but I found it interesting that 37% believe that the pandemic will be over when there is a vaccination, which is gosh knows how far down the road. But 50% of the respondents said they're planning air travel this year. Those two things don't seem to match up, but perhaps we can talk about that later. I do also want, I'm sorry, was someone going to make a comment about that?
Wendy, it's Julie. I just wanted to also, while we still have Andrew on the line, next Tuesday, Great Lakes will be doing a webinar with us where they're going to present that entire finding of their research. So everybody should look for that in their e-updates from us.
Great. So I'll reserve asking to answer that question till next week, Andrew. I also wanted to welcome Chelsea Golterman from Ohio Senator Teresa Fetter's office. I'm sorry I didn't do that when we first started, but welcome, Chelsea, and thank you for being with us.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for having us. I'm happy to be here.
Great. I think we'll go ahead then and move to Brandon Polinsky, a fan favorite on these roundtables from the Lucas County Health Department.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. Glad that we could be here and that you could be here too. I know that there's probably a lot of specific questions you'll have later, so we will certainly be here. I have Jody Vaughn with me as well, one of our supervisors in environmental health, and very, very knowledgeable about everything that we're doing. So generally speaking, from the health department, we're not quite surprised that consumer confidence is still where it's at. It kind of comes down to just how everybody listens to the guidance and listens to the best practices and kind of conforms with those. We know that some of them are a little more challenging than others, especially for things that we've never had to do before, like wearing masks most of the time that we're on the job or doing stuff. But the health department is here to help walk you through that, and we'll do our best. And Jody will speak a little bit later just on the general enforcement and what that might look like. But really our goal is to make sure the public health is as robust and safe as possible. We're not looking to come down harsh on people, but we want to make sure that everyone, to the best of your ability, because we know that you can't control your consumers 100% either, but that you're doing the things to try to make it easier for everyone to work together and put in these best practices to limit the spread moving forward into this hopeful continuing lull in cases. Hopefully we don't have a resurgence, but we're definitely planning in case there is one. So if you have specific questions, we are here to answer them, and we will go from there.
Brandon, could you maybe just quickly, for if folks are not keeping track, where are we at with cases in Lucas County?
Certainly. So over the last week or two, I would say, we have definitely seen a drop in the cases per day that we are reporting. And the way that we report versus the way ODH reports, you'll always see a little discrepancy there if you're following both, just for how the information comes in. Sometimes they get information before we do, sometimes we get it before they do, and it's kind of just a constant race of making sure they meet in the middle at some point. But as far as new cases that we've reported, we've been pretty consistently below 10 a day or around 10 a day, some much less than that for the past week and a half or so. So hopefully that trend continues. For us, it's kind of a wait and see. We certainly want to encourage people to keep being tested. Even if you are asymptomatic and you feel that you haven't, you may have had an exposure, or you live or work with someone who might have had an exposure, definitely get tested, because that's the best way that we're going to know how it's spreading in the community. But as far as overall cases go, we have seen a lull, I'll call it. And we're just hoping that as we continue to reopen, we don't see that start to uptick more. And that'll definitely help consumer confidence. That'll definitely help everyone return to that more normal that we were used to before COVID.
Great, thank you, Brandon. Now I want to turn it over to Lance Woodworth, who's the President and General Manager of Destination Toledo and a great partner of the Chambers. This is his space, his lane, if you will, entertainment and recreation. So Lance, turn it over to you.
Right. Thank you, Wendy. And I just want to, thank Wendy, Julie, the entire team at the Toledo Chamber for spearheading this business reboot. I think it's just so important for all of us to come together collectively as a city, a county, a region, and just put the best foot forward and, set us up for that rebound. So thank you. And I thank you for being a part of this, welcoming to be part of this here today. Travel, tourism, the attractions, it's such a vital part to our area's economy. And I'd just like to start with that. We know that visitor spending annually with our latest research is nearly $900 million in direct spending. That equates to $2.1 billion in economic impact and nearly $250 million in taxes generated for Lucas County out of people coming to this travel tourism industry. So, yes, we matter. We all matter, and it's very important. 1 out of every 11 jobs can be traced back to our industry. So we will help lead, the recovery for the region. Destination Toledo's role, we don't own any attractions and we don't throw any great events, but we have the privilege of being able to promote those and to get out and sell them. Our role in this industry restart is going to be very top of the funnel. What I mean by that is we're going to be out, our team is going to be out every day competing against other destinations for a limited, what is now a drivable market. There's going to be people wanting to staycation, stay closer to home. They'll jump in a car and they'll drive that hour. We're going to be up against other destinations around the state in Southeast Michigan as we compete for that. So what we want to do here with Destination Toledo is take our word, your stories out to those masses and compete for those travelers. We need to do that in a mindful way, though. One of the big things that we need to do is promote safe behavior. And, from the beginning, our goal was to, as the mayor had said, thread that needle between, the health side of things, where we need to be very conscious about the messaging that we're putting out there. And then also knowing that we've got attractions that need people to come in their front doors, and we need to make money. And we need to drive that tax base for the city and for the county. How do we do that? We were just very mindful to encourage travel that would not lead to irresponsible behaviors. Were they doing the social distancing? Were they following the guidelines put forth by the health department? Our messaging needs to align with the health departments, as well as you with your attractions. When you're looking at, your logistics and setting up those operations, are you in line with that? And as Andrew had mentioned with the marketing research, the timing function of this comes down to that consumer confidence. If people feel safe, they're going to come out and they're going to visit. At least a portion of them are. We need to capitalize on those that are ready to travel right now, but we need to make sure they're confident. So as you're setting your operations up and you're going through that, don't look at those guidelines, I guess, as always an anchor that's around your ankle. But look at them as this is the tools that we need to make people feel safe to come to our destination to travel. And those destinations that get the word out on how they are safe to visit are going to be the ones that are successful. And our team here at Destination Toledo will help you and all of us kind of work together on that to get that messaging out. Because I'll tell you, we're going to be up against, gosh, you think about Lake Erie Shores and Islands, Dayton, Columbus, Cleveland, they all want these travelers to come visit them. So that's what we're competing against. Additionally, we want to be a resource to our tourism stakeholders. We want to be here with you. Callie Hearing's on the call here today. She's the marketing manager at Destination Toledo. She's already reached out. She'll be reaching out to others to just align our messaging with yours so that we're not duplicating efforts. We're all under limited budgets nowadays. So if we can all kind of, get the best use of that, even better. And we'll share wins and best practices that we see with all of our partners, because this is a very fluid situation. As you all see, from one day to the next, things change. Another big thing that we're going to do is communicate to our locals as well as the visitors. I would, guess there's probably 40% of the local population that don't want people coming to town. They're afraid, and rightfully so. They don't want people bringing any sickness to town. Would that change? Would their perception change if they know that we have a plan in place? It's okay to open our attractions because we have a plan in place to keep not only the locals safe, but the visitors safe, and they're not going to spread any sickness. And what actions are being taken by everyone to ensure that? And lastly, we're going to target those from a marketing standpoint that are most willing to travel. And Callie and I just had a conversation on this earlier. It's like, we need to dig into that research and see, what third of that population right now is ready to get out and travel, and how do we, pinpoint and target them directly to get them to come here. So we'll identify those markets and we can share that. And we're interested in hearing what you've discovered in your own attractions, so we can all help, pinpoint those and get them to town. But there's definitely a pent-up demand from some of the areas where we've seen openings. People are traveling and people are coming out in droves. I sincerely believe that when this pendulum swings, it's going to swing hard the other way, and we're going to be overwhelmed. There's going to be a lot of people coming to town. We've got great things on the horizon. If you missed it, LPGA announced yesterday, a press release went out that at the end of July and into the beginning of August, the LPGA is resuming their 2020 season. We've got a tournament at Inverness at the end of July, followed by the Marathon Classic at Highland Meadows right after that. So, and that's this year. Of course, next year we build up to the Solheim Cup and all the other great things going on. And hopefully we've got Winterfest this December. So lots of good things on the horizon. This situation's finite. If we all do this in measured, controlled steps, and keep things in this pandemic under control, we will have success again. The sun will come out. So I'm excited that we're able to talk about opening and not shutting things down right now. So thank you for the opportunity to kind of come and share what we can do. But feel free, reach out to the team here at Destination Toledo and let us help you for the better of our whole area. So thank you.
Great, thanks, Lance. Great insights. Want to turn it over now to Melinda Huntley, who is the Executive Director of the Ohio Travel Association. So a statewide perspective. Melinda?
Thanks, Julie. First of all, let me say you guys are in good hands. I have known Lance for decades through my work. Yes, first at Cedar Point, then running kind of the Ottawa County Visitors Bureau, now Lake Erie Shores and Islands. So I've known Lance for many, many years, and I'm very excited he's at the helm up there. So just to give you a little perspective of who the Ohio Travel Association is, so you know who I represent and why I say the things I do. I am not a state agency. I do not receive funding. I represent all the businesses that, you know, basically make a living, employ people, survive because of travel. So we are a nonprofit 501(c) trade organization. And so that's the perspective that we have. So I thought, you know, given the time, and I want to be very conscientious of time, I usually do a discussion about establishing the guidelines, talking about how you can integrate these guidelines, what it's doing to the traveler and the traveler sentiment, and what are some patterns. It's a full hour, right? So I've decided in conversations with Lance, we're going to bring something back to you that's very more specific. But what I want to do is give you kind of that lay of the land, talk about a few of the things I saw that I just received in your notes, and then open it up for questions. Because it's a roundtable, which I want to hear from you. I think I want to hear your questions and what's on your mind just as much. So as far as the economics of what has happened, it is 9 times the economic impact of 9/11 as far as what has happened to the travel economy. The Ohio travel economy has lost $6.1 billion since mid-March. And that's calculated by tracking the weekly traveler expenditure. So that is a $6.1 billion loss. We have basically have lost more than half of our jobs. We started out with about 429,000 full-time equivalent jobs in this industry and in these businesses. And we have lost, basically 51%, which is about the same as we're seeing reflected on a national level. So, you know, when people sometimes say, well, everybody's hurting, I say, no, you know, this sector of the economy was hit first and the hardest, and many of our businesses still aren't open. And the losses are continuing at about $500 million every week. So that is where we are as far as the economy. One of the things I want to mention is that, you know, when people stop traveling, it also impacts our state, local, and federal governments as well. So we know to date that we've lost about $108 million in local tax revenue that's generated when people come to your businesses, when they eat in your restaurants, when they, you know, shop at your retail. Another $181 million lost in state tax revenue. So, you know, we are in a situation where, you know, anything we can do to help you reopen, to help us gain ground, to help compete with, you know, to get travelers back safely, we're going to do everything we can. One of the good things, I know that was like, oh man, that's so doom and gloomish. Here's the good thing. According to a study by Oxford Economics, and they projected nationwide in mid-March, $519 billion loss nationwide. What they also predicted was that we could recoup about, I don't know, $119 billion of that through travel promotion, through actually, you know, reopening our businesses and being smart and strategic in the messaging and inviting people to come back and to travel and to feel comfortable traveling and to spend money. So the fact is that, you know, travel promotion can be a very effective tool in economic recovery and needs to be, you know, at the table for that. We will continue to see, even as our businesses start to open, we'll continue to see losses. only at a decreasing percentage each month, but they are projecting it for quite a while. Just about an hour ago, I was on the phone with Senator Portman's office. There is a new package that's being introduced this week that is looking at providing some additional help for all of you and for those of us in this industry. And it focuses around 3 basic buckets: additional relief, additional protection, and stimulus. So from a relief standpoint, they're looking at expanding the eligibility of the payroll protection program. Many businesses, such as Toledo's CVB and the chamber itself, are 501c6s. I see you guys nodding, as am I. So it's just ironic that the very businesses who have been, really working 24/7 to help all the businesses have been cut out of most of the aid. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. So because of our tax classification as a C6, we're not eligible. Yet we're the ones that are trying to help you every single day. It's just weird. So part of it, we'll look for that. From a protection standpoint, they are looking at a targeted liability program to protect our businesses. If we develop these safety plans and we're following the guidelines and we're trying to protect our guests, then we need to be covered from a liability standpoint. And so there is an effort to try to gain some targeted liability for those businesses who have plans in place. Because you know as well as I do, we can't control the actions of others. We can put the plans in place. We can do everything that we've been told, but we need some protection. And as far as stimulus dollars, they're looking at not only some additional monies that could go to communities for promoting their communities. So recognizing, again, remember when I said that if we spend money, we bring people back in, we invite people to travel, that will have a direct result on the economy. Same concept. So I think it's about $10 billion they're looking for to help promote travel, and also a traveler tax credit that could be up to $4,000 per household to be used, for travel. So those are some of the things that we are discussing on the federal level that we have been working on. As far as what's happening, and I'm going to keep an eye on it, so I give you guys ample time for questions. What's happening with the traveler market? I appreciate Andrew's research. It's pretty spot on to what we're seeing. What's really interesting, and I heard this from a researcher just last week. He was saying it also depends on how hard areas have been hit, right? So if you are going into, and if your market is going to be Detroit, there's going to be a much different sentiment than it is if you're targeting someplace, like Columbus. So I think we have to be cognizant of that and understand all of this research is out there, and it's such an effective tool, but try to put that personal level over it, because some areas have had a really strong psychological toll on this, and some people, it will take longer for them to recover. So what we're seeing, we are starting to see some movement. Adara, Arrivalist, both different companies that actually, one of them even tracks like GPS movement and car movement. They're starting to see people getting out. The leisure travel is rebounding at, of course, a much larger or much greater spike than corporate travel, meeting business, right? Meetings and conventions. That's going to be a little longer to recover. We're actually, and this surprised me, we're seeing group travel actually start to get back on the road again. In fact, we had a speaker from Meredith Corporation a couple weeks ago, and there's a 400% increase in interest in curated travel, because people want to travel, they want to do a lot of research, but they want to have everything planned. No longer are they willing to just, I'm going to come into Toledo and I'm going to decide what to do once I'm there. What we're seeing is the reversal. They're coming into Toledo, but they know exactly where they're going to go, where they're going to eat, where they're going to stay, what they're going to do while they're here. And that would make sense. So they're doing the research, they're making sure these businesses have the plans in place and are doing everything they can to protect them. And that's how they are starting to start to travel. You know, and speaking of that, we just looked, this morning I saw a study that was looking at, you know, what would motivate you to visit an attraction, to visit an area. Right now, actually, like discounts, bargains, so the price consciousness, everybody, almost nearly everyone has been hit economically on this. And while, you know, that it's still the COVID itself is the primary concern, we're starting to see this economic concern creep in. So they are looking for discounts. They are 30%. Look, they're only going to be comfortable coming to you if they know you've taken this seriously and have plans in place, right? So when Lance talks about it from a safety standpoint, which is essential, like that's what we do every day, right? Even pre-COVID, we kept our guests' health, safety, #1 concern. We should continue to keep them the #1 concern. But it's not just a matter of safety. It's about the ability to attract them. It's also about the marketing. It's also about making them comfortable to walk through your doors. So there's multiple reasons why you have to have a plan in place and are able to move forward. What else are we seeing with the market? Drive market, Lance mentioned that. You know, we are seeing interesting, your folks who are willing to fly much higher rates than we're seeing from American travelers. So, and that could be, you know, basically because of your geography and culture. Because we are seeing a lot of the air traffic changing to a drive market. We're still seeing 70% of American travelers are planning to go somewhere this summer, but what they're doing is changing and how they're getting there is changing. And they are looking at drive markets. They're looking at more outdoor experiences. They're looking at places that make them feel they're not crowded. So even in your imagery on social media or anything you do, be very conscientious of you know, using images that show space, because they're very concerned about that. History and heritage right up there in you know, what they're interested in doing. And there was a study out even this morning, and I loved this because this is the first glimmer I've seen. You know, 30% were still interested in returning to theaters, where before that was much lower. And so we're starting to see people feel a little bit more comfortable. But again, it's going to be based on, you know, what you do and your plans that are in place. I like to say, look, everybody expected good customer service, right? That was just an expectation for them. We didn't have to highlight that in everything. Same thing is happening here. Our customers know exactly what you're supposed to be doing, and they know exactly what are the requirements. And everyone says, but it's so confusing. You know what? I say it's not that confusing. It's just hard, right? You know, the 5 principles, the social distancing, the facial covering. It's just hard because we're in the business of hospitality. That's what we do. And so putting these guidelines on top of the experience is just really hard for us. I get that. And but our consumers are going to expect it. We're also seeing you're going to want to think about who you're marketing to. Local, #1, right now. We're seeing the tendency for people to explore local and then slowly, as their comfort level increases, maybe reach out a little further. So your local market becomes important. I don't know who it was that said on one of the questions or best practices, something about targeting to your VIPs or your close audience. Bang, that's it, right? That is perfect. You know, we are saying that people who have been to you before are going to be the first customers to come back. They're also the best customers to come back because they're the most loyal. They're the most forgiving. They're going to tell you if they see something they're not comfortable with. And I'm going to tell you, ask them, right? Use them. As you develop a plan, don't think that you're going to develop a plan and it's going to be inked and you're never going to change it. Every single business we've talked to throughout the country has had to change their plan. The really great ones, they've included advice from their employees and those initial visitors who come. Did you feel safe? Is there something we could have done better? So those are all the things we cover in a much broader presentation, but I wanted to address. One of the other things you're going to look for, much shorter booking window. And this is related to hotels, but I think it also has a lot to do with ticket purchasing. So from a hotel perspective, you know, the average used to be about 43 days, a booking window. Now it's less than 30, and the fastest growing and the greatest leap has been in those booking in less than 7 days. So it's kind of like people are all this pent-up demand, and then they just have to like get the bug, and then they're going to get out. Speaking of that, the number one thing that we're seeing besides the vaccine, right? Besides the vaccine, when asked what would make them comfortable visiting an attraction, the next thing was seeing other people visit. Yet another reason why your donors, your return visits, your VIPs are a vital part of your recovery. Ask them for help. Ask them to promote you on social media, because we're seeing that a lot of people are only going to be comfortable visiting if they see other people visiting. And what better group to address than on that? So that is just basically, in a nutshell, some of the movement we're seeing as far as the guidelines. And we can talk about this, but I saw this in a lot of the questions. I wanted to just spend a second on that. We are in contact with the governor's office at least once daily, looking for clarification, right? We know this is confusing stuff. But again, 5 basic principles. How do you use your customer experience and base those guidelines on your customer experience? To look for specific guidelines and step by step would be even worse, because that's putting you in a box. This gives you the freedom to say, based on my experience, you know, based on the experience we're offering, this is what we can do. And I also am giving you permission right now, like I'll say it here, I'm giving you permission to view these guidelines in a different way. Can you really augment the experience you offer? Because you have less people, you have the social distancing. We're starting to see people start to pivot and starting to think, okay, well now, maybe I can bring the chef to my table. Maybe I can do, you know, small, more intimate things at my experience that I never could before. And so a lot of those things we used to reserve for our VIP guests. Right now, every person who walks through your door is a VIP guest. So don't start cutting your pricing right away. The experience you offer, and it's kind of like getting back to remembering why we're in the business we're in. And we've forgotten that at some point because we've been so mired with everything that's happening. And I'm saying, you know, get back to that moment, get back to why we're in the business. That's why people are going to return. So I think that is it in a nutshell. I'm sure I could continue to talk, but I really want to hear from you and to listen to some of your questions and concerns.
Great, thank you, Melinda. That was a lot of really good information, a lot of great things to think about. We do have just 15 minutes, which I think is great. Plenty of time. If you have questions, you can type them in the chat room, or you can just unmute yourself and bust in and say, I have a question. That works too. So anybody have any specific questions for Melinda Lance, the health department, or anyone else that's on the call?
While they're typing, I might just go through a couple of the concerns we had sent to us, if that's okay.
Sure.
Yeah, there it is. Reopening to a select group first without upsetting others. Brilliant. Whoever contributed that, spot on. That was a great idea. The social distancing for large events. I'm going to talk about that, and I hope the mayor is still on the call. If not, maybe someone can get some information to him about this. But He mentioned the 300 limit for wedding receptions. I invite you all to go back to the Ohio coronavirus page, look in the public health orders. There is a new public health order that was issued quietly last week that kind of expands. It's not just for wedding receptions. We worked on this just trying to say, look, it's okay to have wedding receptions for 300, but we can't have a meeting for 300. That makes no sense. So you will see now the public health order is basically saying, you know, it's venues that provide food and beverage, which does allow our hoteliers and other venues to have events up to 300 persons if they're practicing social distancing. It also permits dancing with social distancing. Not sure how we're going to do that. But I had a call with 10 GMs of downtown Cleveland hotels last week. And well, you should have heard some of the ideas being thrown out. I wish I would have recorded it. I'm like, I want to come to that wedding because that sounds like a hoot. But that has been expanded a little bit. The whole 10-person limit, I just don't get that. And I'll be perfectly honest with you. I think it's more group size, right? So here's how it's being interpreted in restaurants and other businesses. It means like, if you do a tour, limit it to 10 people, right? But that doesn't mean that you can't have more than 10 people at your attraction. It just means if there's a congregated space, like for how I've seen it, I was talking to an attraction just 2 weeks ago, and they usually have like 15 people in their tour, and they've cut it back to 10. And even with that 10, you're going to social distance family units, right? So understand it doesn't have to be between person to person if 5 people came in the same car, but maybe social distance those people from that. There was a question about performance venues. Seriously, like, I get it. There is a lot of talk right now of seeing, and what we're starting to do is try to fight for reopening of small professional community theaters, if they're at least get somebody open. But we haven't received any word on that or any direction on that. The other thing we're working on is events and festivals, right? So county fairs are permitted, but other fairs and festivals aren't, which we want some clarification. Also, the Memorial Golf Tournament was opened. And my question to the governor's office was, okay, well, in what category? Does that mean all golf tournaments can open, if they submit the guidelines? Is it all events? And I think, what, it's a really tough job they're trying to do. And I don't think, realized all the idiosyncrasies we all have, but that's why we're in business. We're all the same. Why would anyone travel, right? So at the time, at one point, we're saying, oh my gosh, like, I can't find a bucket that I necessarily fit in. Understand that's because of who we are. And each of you are unique, and each of you offers something different. So we're trying to get some clarification on that. That at first he had said they could submit plans to, the governor's office. He doesn't want every festival and event in Ohio to be sending a plan. I don't think they really realized how many we have. And so we're trying to get some clarification surrounding that. The other thing that's we're working on is to get the public health order that opened the museums and entertainment businesses posted. That still hasn't been posted. All we got are the guidelines. We still don't have the public order. And we know from past experience, for instance, when the restaurant order was issued, there were a few tweaks in there that restaurants were kind of caught off guard. And we don't want that to happen to our businesses. And I've talked to his office about, we also, want to make sure that our business, if there's a change in those orders, we're not held responsible for implementing. There has to be a timeline where we're able to implement. You guys are so fortunate. Your public health department's on the call here. They are your best friend. Talk to them, share your plans with them, share your concerns with them, because they are, on the ground and can be of great assistance.
Great, thanks, Melinda. Other questions that cover everything that was sent ahead of time, Julie?
It does. I think the only thing that I saw separately of that was safe food service. So I think you touched on that a little bit, and I don't know if that is a combination of Melinda and Brandon on answering that, but there seemed to be some concern both from attractions and from venues on food service.
What we are advising attractions and venues is follow the restaurant protocols. Follow the restaurant. You need to go again, to that Ohio coronavirus, look for the new order, the dine safe order. And so what we are telling businesses, even before we got the notice that many of us could reopen, is look, you have general business operations at all of your businesses, follow the general business guidelines. If you have a retail shop, follow the retail guidelines. If you have food service, follow the food service guidelines. Don't expect to see all of the guidelines for all of your different components, because again, we're all very different in what we offer. So take advantage of going to that page, look through all the guidelines, because there's a bunch of them, and look for experiences that you offer that are very similar to the guidelines already posted. And you're going to be able to put that together. I have been saying, since this began, your number one reason for developing a plan and developing a strategy isn't to be able to open. Your number one plan is to keep your employees, your consumers, right, your guests, your vendors as safe as possible. If you do that, following the information that's already available, if you keep that in mind and develop a plan, I guarantee you're going to go above and beyond the requirements, because your number one goal is to take a look at what you have to offer and how do you apply those 5 principles across the field.
Brandon, did you have it? Go ahead.
Yep. Brandon from the Health Department. Thank you, Melinda, also for all the kind words. And you almost could stand in for us. You had a lot of wealth of information there. I will say that on our website, we have a link, a direct link to all of those orders as they come out, more concentrated. The Ohio Department of Health site has them in a bunch of different drop downs. They're not the easiest to find. So go to lucascountyhealth.com if you're looking for a more concentrated section of those orders as they come out. As far as reopening food, I'm actually going to pivot that to Jody, because she is our food safety supervisor at the health department. So she can speak a little bit to that now. And if anybody has any more specific questions, we can certainly answer those offline if you send emails to the chamber, and they can be forwarded over.
Sorry. Hi, I'm Jody. I'm the food safety supervisor at Toledo Lucas County Health Department. And we are doing the best we can to answer the questions as soon as the guidance comes out and changes. We did send out everybody that is inspected by the health department is on our health space. And on health space, we have a mass email that goes out. And a couple of days ago, we sent out a little more information with the most recent FAQs on the new Dine Safe order. Like Brandon said, if you have specific questions about your facility, we are always more than happy to answer those. We have a hotline where we answer questions, and if you dial the main number, either the clerical staff can answer some of them, or they forward them to one of the sanitarians that can answer. If you're in direct contact with your district sanitarian, they're happy to answer those too. And I know it gets confusing when all of the different guidances come out, and your facility may have one or more of the guidances. But we're doing our best as we can to answer those as they come out. And I'm happy to take direct questions or specific questions as time allows.
Great. Any other questions?
Wendy, I did get two in the private chat to me. One was in regard to PPE for guests. Is that required for guest at attractions, and what is the responsibility of the venue to provide that? And then the second one is in regard to enforcement, just the same thing. We sort of had the same conversation when restaurants open. There was a question about if a venue has people there, like what does enforcement look like if there's more than 10 in a tour group or those types of things. So
Brandon, do you want to take that first, and then Melinda?
Yeah, certainly. So as far as personal protective equipment for your guests and patrons, you'll notice a lot of the guidance recommends it for them, but there is no state level requirement for masks. It's certainly recommended. We recommend you say, hey patron, please do this. There are businesses that require it, and that is along the lines of other requirements you might put in place for your business: no shirt, no shoes, no service, that kind of thing. But there is no state level mandate that guests must wear a face mask, although we certainly recommend that they do. As far as other PPE, your best PPE honestly is behavior and sanitation. So if you have ways that guests can wash their hands, sanitize their hands, stay distance from one another, put those in place, and definitely encourage guests who are sick to stay home. And especially if they've bought a ticket for an event they're looking forward to, they're thinking, oh, I just have a cough, I just have a sniffle. You may want to look at what your refund policy is so you can promote the best health possible if someone does come up sick right before a performance or right before an entertainment venue. So that's what I will say for now, and I will kick it over to you, Melinda.
Yes, it was a great question. And so, yes, it is up to the individual business on whether or not to make facial coverings mandatory. It is recommended. What we are seeing happening, we do have some that have mandated. Cedar Point just came out that they're going to make it a requirement, and they're getting just beat up on social media because of that requirement. There was, remember the study I said just came out today about travelers, some of the stats. One of them was that what would keep them away, 24% actually said if facial coverings were a requirement. So it's something you have to weigh. One of the really nice things I've seen, and I try to look at other businesses, not just in entertainment. So let's look at restaurants. Let's look at hotels. Let's look at some businesses that have gone through this already, right? We don't have to reinvent the wheel. One of the really great things I saw, if you don't make it mandatory, is perhaps a sign that says masks appreciated, right? That just had such a much better tone to me than mask recommended. I would be like, oh, okay, I'll wear one then. So it is one of those things that each business can determine. What I will also say about facial coverings and what we're learning and through our best practices hearing. So your employees are required for facial coverings unless they fall into those 5 or 6 exclusions. And you must have a letter ready on hand in case Brandon or Jody asks for it, right? Why those people don't have facial coverings. Really take a look at where you're putting those people at your attraction. They may not be the best people to put at the front desk, right? If you're trying to encourage facial coverings, then you may not want an employee who's excluded from facial coverings to be taking tickets or front facing. And, on a temporary basis, could you reassign them maybe to a place that there won't be as much interaction with guests because of those requirements. So we're seeing it all over the board, whether or not attractions and businesses are choosing to mandate or not. But all of them are saying recommended, but I really encourage you to think about the wording and how you say that.
And Melinda, I love the signs I've seen that says the governor says you must wear masks. The governor says, and I always want to like correct them, like, well, technically that's not accurate, but
I know.
yeah, that's probably not the best. I think they were thinking that, oh, people will be afraid not to, and that really isn't working out that way.
Right. Hey, everybody knows, like, right. That's one thing. Like, everybody knows what the requirements are, and we've seen really clever things. There was, I was on did a presentation this morning, and someone had an example of a restaurant, and the social distancing signs were, the floor is lava, right? Like, I was like, that's perfect. Do you ever play the game where the floor was the lava? So you had to stay on the signs. So I encourage you to think about, even this, Brandon mentioned having the notification, don't enter if sick, or, your signage even. Be reflective of the experience you're offering in your brand. Like, don't compromise your brand just because of these requirements. Hayes Presidential Center, for instance, as President Hayes, like, I survived the Civil War. You can survive wearing a facial covering. There's ways that we can be true to who we are, but still put these, into place. Because our customers, the people are coming to us for a reason, and that reason is, in many cases, to kind of that escapism, right? To understand we have to do this, but for a few moments, they're looking for relief, they're looking for engagement, they're looking for those things that we can provide to them. And so keep that in mind as you're implementing some of the strategies.
Thank you, Melinda. It was great information. We are just a couple minutes past 2 o'clock, so we want to wrap things up. Again, go to the website. The Toledo Chamber /reboot page has a direct link to the health department, or go there directly. I know I'm going to be taking another look at that new public health order, which I think maybe had some things slid in that weren't really talked about. So that's definitely worth another look. And again, thank you all for what you do. Reach out. I think everyone in the community is thinking about businesses and attractions and entertainment, and understanding how difficult it is. And hopefully your consumers are being understanding and flexible. But feel free to reach out to us if you need any assistance. We're happy to help with that. Good luck. And the one thing, at least the weather is certainly cooperating for summer activities. So we wish you all the best of luck. And again, reach out anytime. Thank you to our partners. Thank you, Lance, for participating in this. If we all work together, we can figure it out. Again, thank you, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for having us.